Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a watercolor page made with StencilGirl stencils. I know you don't usually stencil with watercolor because you're not going to get a pristine effect because it's wet and it might slide under the stencil, but it does give a real like painterly interesting effect, and so it's kind of fun to do sometimes. This first stencil that I'm going to use, and by the way, I'm still in my Arteza watercolor journal, which I plan to finish out with watercolor only or water media, maybe, mostly watercolor. Um, this stencil was created by or designed by Carolyn Doobie, and I think it's called Arched Aqueducts, I believe. I'll link it in the description box below the video in case you want to find it, as well as the other stencil that I use. But I'm using some different colors of yellows and oranges with my fatter watercolor brush. I believe this is a 12 round from Uricht. I don't know how you say that word. I know it's a town and I think it's in Germany, but I don't know how to say it right for sure. But it holds a lot of water. It's a synthetic sable Taklon, I think, golden Taklon, and the way the brush is designed, it holds a lot of water, so I can go quite a ways with pigment. I'm taking the pigment out of my pans and then mixing it onto my little mixing tray and getting it nice and juicy. That's so that I have like a lot of it at once to use. So once I took the stencil off, I decided to just fill in the lighter areas just a little bit, real painterly like, not completely covering it, but making it, I don't know, have a little bit more, I guess it makes it more cohesive looking. And of course the stencil, the pigment did not stay. It did go under the stencil a little bit, but it gives it that real washy watercolored look, which I like. So then I'm going to move on to my second stencil, which the designer is Jessica Sporn, and it's a kind of like a women empowerment stencil. It has words on it that I really liked when I saw it, and that's the reason I purchased it. Also, it has these little women in different hands, and I don't know, all kinds of stuff. It's about women empowerment. So I am going to paint through the stencil and use the stencil as my base, and then probably add more to it. It's like three women. Perhaps they're dryads because they're transforming into trees. They got their arms up, and they're not distinct looking. So I'm just kind of painting all three of them at the same time, going back and forth different areas so that I don't get a bunch of wash, and blooms and things. And holding down the stencil a little bit. One thing that you can do if you really want to oh my gosh, watercolor with stencils and you don't want it to go underneath is there's a product that's made by iCraft called Pixie Spray, and it's not sticky, it's just kind of tacky. You don't have to wash it off your stencils. You can just spray it and then like wait a minute till it's dry, and then it's kind of almost like a post-it note. It has that type of a repositionable glue on the back, and that will hold your stencil down, and you won't get any uh, watercolor going under the stencil hardly at all. But I don't need that. I want this to look loose and painterly and more interesting, and that's the reason that I'm doing this. So I don't need to put pixie spray on. I don't want to put pixie spray on. But if you're one of those people that really does not like messy things and wants everything super precise, it's a good way to go. So I'm using three different colors on the dresses or robes or whatever these figures are wearing. I have some kind of like a green gold, and then a phthalo blue, and then kind of a crimson color. And yeah, those colors, when they bleed in together, could make a neutral, but I'm not too worried about it. I just let them bleed into each other and giving kind of an ombre effect on the dresses. Then I used that same green on the leaves, and you can see it's sparse. It's doesn't have as much stuff as I think it should. So I'm going to end up painting in things, which then makes it no longer a stencil. It makes it more something that I painted, you know. But a stencil is a great start for. It's like a shortcut, like a hack. You know, you can use the stencil and then move on and do your other stuff. So it's just fun. It's just something that you can do. Um, on Thursday, I used some stencils and some watercolor on the gel plate. So that's another fun thing to do to make backgrounds. If you haven't watched that video yet, you can watch that one. It was during the live stream on Art Joy of Sharing over on our other channel where we live stream every Thursday. So now I'm painting in more leaves. There just absolutely was not enough leaves. If you're going to have a tree, it's got to have lots and lots and lots of leaves. So I'm using that same green color that I used at the bottom of the dresses. I wish I knew what exactly that color is called, but I don't, because I made this pan out of a lot of different brands and different colors. Just that's not all one thing, so I can't tell you. It's got everything from Daniel Smith to I don't know. It's got Lucas, it's got M. Graham, and then it's got some other less expensive ones that are mixed in there. So then I get out my Arteza ones because I want to use that white. It's like a gouache. Watercolor doesn't really come in white because watercolor is translucent, and so you know it has white though. So if it has white, I'm going to use it, and it's quite opaque, and I can make lines with it. I can make illustration lines. I can make funky things on it. I can touch up a little bit where things have gone too much under the stencil. In between the first two ladies down at the bottom, there was a real bleed. The one dress bled into the other dress, and I wanted a separation, so I can put that white there. I did pick some of it up with a damp brush, and then I can put the white there, and I can really get rid of that overly smushy bit of paint down there at the bottom. Put the white on, let it dry, and then go back over with some yellow, and you'll hardly even ever know it was there. I've decided at this point to make the three different ladies have different skin tones. So the middle one has kind of an olive or I don't know, that type of a skin tone and brown hair. Then the one on the left is going to have dark skin and dark hair. And the one on the right is going to have light skin and light hair. So they're all just a little bit different. So I'm going over that magenta that I put on there with some other colors from the Arteza set. These Arteza colors, I just picked out 24 colors and made my own pans. There's actually 60 colors, 60 tubes in the set, and they are more like gouache than they are like pure watercolor because they do have some opacity to them, and so that makes it easy to go over and paint a little bit of different colors. I still got some bleed through from the magenta, but that's okay because magenta is part of a skin tone. And I could change the people's skin tone and also put some hair on them because they were little baldies. You know, they had that bald situation going on. So I made them less like ghosts or spirits and more like people, I guess, is what I did. And what else am I doing? I'm still messing with that. I've got the white watercolor from the Arteza to just mess around with adding some sketchy lines and swirly lines and different stuff that you might do. Yeah. Oh, I guess I decided to get out some brighter green. It's like almost like a lime green sort of. It's mixing two different colors in the Arteza set, and add that to the background around the tops of the trees as if they are fuller. There's more green, there's more stuff going on there. Maybe there's some other trees behind them or something, just to change up the background a little bit. You can still see the arches coming through, but it just changed it a little bit. It made it a little bit more interesting, I thought. Because I was trying to think of what would make this more interesting. It seemed a little dull. I think I do end up adding some turquoise or teal at some point as well, but not yet. Then I decided to add more branches using that same brown color. I added, I darkened up the branches. I'm connecting, in stencils they have bridges. That's what those little connector pieces are, that make spaces on your stencil when you stencil it. Those are called bridges, and that's how the stencil stays together and doesn't completely fall apart. It would just, come out. Part of it would come out if you didn't have bridges. So I painted over the bridges so that there's no more bridges, and then I added more branches coming out and darkening up the dress a little bit. The thing about watercolor is it it's really light on the first layer most of the time, and so you got to kind of go and make a couple layers to make it vibrant. And you know me, I like to have really bright, vibrant color. I don't want anything to be faded. So I've been putting 2 or 3 layers of color on when I do these watercolor things in my book. Still messing with the faces a little bit. I wanted to put red cheeks on, but then the cheeks bled into the face, and then it made it like it was one big red blob, so I had to keep overcorrecting. When I was trying to put the cheeks on, I had to keep correcting it. Plus I had that pink bleed through, which was bothering me on the middle one, so it got a little bit blobby. I'm okay with that. This is supposed to be a loose interpretation. It's not supposed to be precise, so that was fine with me. So if you're enjoying this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. You can share this on Pinterest. You can subscribe and turn on notification bells. Leave me a comment or question below. I usually answer within 24 hours, except for when something crazy in my life takes me away from the computer for a couple days, like last weekend. Yeah, go ahead and leave me a comment or a question. All those things that you do help my channel grow by helping YouTube think that I am making something valuable that someone might want to see, and then they will recommend it to other people. So I always appreciate it when you do those things for me. Some more bright green in the background I decided to add because it seemed like it had faded out a little bit, and so I mixed up some more. I know that my mixing plates on the things are off the screen, as well as my water jars, and yeah, the screen's just not big enough to fit everything, but I'm using the tray itself to, it flips 3 ways, so there's a tray here and a tray here that you can use to mix. So then I decided to add the words that came on the stencil, the words that attracted me to the stencil in the first place. It says, "Women hold up half of the sky." And I thought that that was really good, interesting saying that makes you think. So I decided to use some indigo to write that, and I just used a number 2 round brush. You could also use a script brush, but I don't know where mine is. So the number 2 comes to a point enough that you can write with it. So I went over it a couple times in some areas to make it darker. As you're going along, you start out real dark, and then you start to lose the pigment in your brush, and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. So had to go over some of the spots. Still trying to add those red cheeks. Still having a problem. It'll get there somewhat eventually. Coming back in with the white again. I like that white gouache from Arteza. It makes fun things. You know, I like to make white marks with my acrylic marker. And so this is a similar type of thing, only with a brush and a watercolor. There's no pens used on here at all. So I know that's unusual. I often use pens on my art. Anyway, this one is just about done. I think I'm almost ready to be done with it. I think the last thing that I did was to add indigo sketchy lines with my brush. And I'm not sure if I'm quite to that yet. I think this is where I add the turquoise. Okay, I'm going to add some of the turquoise into the sky and down the sides as if there's maybe some sky. I mean, the background doesn't lend itself to sky since I put that other stencil on there, but maybe there's a little bit of sky, or maybe it brings it in a little bit on the edges for composition. I felt like there was a lot of space between the edges of the ladies and the edge of the page. It was bothering me. So by adding that little bit of turquoise, loose turquoise blue, it kind of put parentheses around the page and squished it in a little bit. So here I'm using the indigo color. This is one of my favorite colors. It's a Daniel Smith. I just love it. I just love it. It's a great color. Um, and my number 2 round brush to do like little sketchy lines around my figures here and there, adding some creases to their robes to make them a little bit more interesting, adding a little bit of lines here and there, darkening up some shadows into the trees and leaves. And I think that's the last thing that I did. I might have come back in with another layer of white. I can't remember. I guess we'll find out when we watch it, right? That's how it works. I watch it, I talk, um, I find out what I did because I can't remember, and I talk about it. Yep, there's some more white. I was right. Oh, splatters. Yes, I do like splatters. I added some, I think, some of that light green as a splatter effect too earlier on in the video. I can't remember. Let's look at the picture. Yeah, there's some green on there. It's not the light green, it's the darker green up in the leaves. There'll be close-ups at the end, so you can watch those. And of course, links to all the products I used. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.